So, the thing about horror games is that they, like most media really, can be divided into eras of influence. One major release, and then a whole bunch of other games trying to riff on the same concept. Like, let's go back to the 90s, right? Let's not go back to the 90s. Resident Evil, for instance, obviously not the first horror game, but kind of the popularization of the genre, and probably the reason that to this day we still call anything with a jump scare in it survival horror, and not just horror. Then the 2000s had Silent Hill 2, which you could argue is a similar type of game to Resident Evil, but I would say is actually super not. Yes, they both have tank controls and item management, but past that, they're completely different. Silent Hill 2 taught people that if something's scary, it can also make you sad. It was dealing with heavy existential concepts like sickness and guilt and loss. I mean, pretty much every psychological horror game is about a character reliving their past mistakes and finding out, whoa, I did a bad thing. And how many of those games actually got it right? It's Rule of Rose, that's the one. Then in the late 2000s, early 2010s, you saw YouTube was suddenly a thing, and Frictional Games comes out with a horror game about running away from a monster you can't fight back against. That sounds familiar. Amnesia turned horror games into a spectator event. It turned them into a challenge, it turned them into a culture, it was something you shared with people. I'm not gonna say Let's Plays started with Amnesia, but they certainly boosted a lot of people to the top. You download fraps, you buy a webcam, and suddenly bada bing bada boom, you're making millions of dollars, getting in trouble for saying the N-word on Twitch, and obviously none of these eras exist in a vacuum. They compound on each other, each one is a product of the ones that came before it. And the key aspects of every one of those eras pretty much came together in a single game in 2014. No. PT, I came in really strong and then I completely forgot the lines I was gonna say. PT was a video game. It was a video game. So at Gamescom 2014, Hideo Kojima came out to unveil a trailer for the cardboard box in Metal Gear Solid 5. That was all he came to talk about, just the cardboard box. And then for some reason, right after he walked off stage, there was a trailer for this weird horror game called PT. Nobody had ever heard of it. The trailer was this. Pretty accurate to the actual experience of playing the game, I guess. And it just launched right then on PlayStation Network. Anybody could play it, and so people flocked to PSN to try it out. It was this weird, ambiguous horror puzzle game where you had to work your way through the same hallways of this one house over and over again, and you're piecing together this story about a man who apparently murdered his entire family, and maybe you're that man wandering through limbo forever because of the things you've done. It's not that original of a story. I mean, it's basically ripping off Silent Hill 2 again, but it was ambiguous and creepy, and that's what the appeal was trying to figure shit out. People spent days trying to bounce ideas back and forth off each other to figure out how to get through this thing.
Jay, Lisa, Jareth, she's gonna kill me. Jay, Lisa, Jareth.
Is it still vibrating?
Yeah, kind of. What now?
And when you finally solve all those puzzles, you're just slammed in the face all of a sudden with 4 doses of, dude, what the fuck? Hideo Kojima, Guillermo del Toro, Norman Reedus, all working on a Silent Hill game together. And that got people's minds racing about what Silent Hills might be. Was it just gonna be more PT? Was it gonna be something totally different? And PT was just this absolutely ridiculous teaser for what we might have in store for the scares? It was a really exciting time, and then Konami said, fuck you. We make pachinko now, actually. Hey, you like those upgraded, you like these MGS3 HD sprites? Guess what? They're fucking pachinko fucking shit. But the thing about PT is, even though it was just supposed to be a playable teaser for a bigger game, there were other reasons to care about it. Somehow this demo you could get through in maybe an hour if you were doing it right, was a more effective horror experience than anything that had come out in the past few years. The no-nonsense approach of PT is really what sold it, I think. It was so effective in its simplicity. It was just you in a house, walking through and seeing creepy shit. And so, of course, people took notice. One of the big ones was Resident Evil 7, right? Obviously, Resident Evil 6 was Resident Evil 6. So they knew they had to do something, and then Konami puts out PT, and Capcom's like, hey, it's free real estate. So Resident Evil 7 is a fairly simple first-person survival horror game set in a house. And that's kind of where the comparison ends with the game itself, but the demo is really where I think they took most of their hints from PT.
Also, hey, maybe the thing you forgot to mention while recording, that they stealth marketed the game through a PSVR tech demo called Kitchen that was only revealed to be RE7 related when the game got announced. Stupid. Dumbass. Fucking idiot.
Resident Evil 7 The Beginning Hour was a short little demo that took place entirely in one building of the Baker Mansion that had you wandering through the place and solving puzzles that were a little obtuse but not anything near PT. And the demo was fine, it was kind of whatever, but I'll at least give them credit for trying to put their own spin on it. They updated it over time to add more content, they added more endings, they added more enemies to fight, and even though people weren't that crazy about the demo, it kept people talking about it right up to release, so pretty effective to me. But then you've got the games that really turned PT into a genre. One of the more well-known ones being Layers of Fear by Bloober Team, which I don't like really at all. Layers of Fear, if nothing else, is very honest up front about what it is. It is a haunted mansion, and that's kind of it. Right down to the story, it's pretty much on par with something you would see at like a county fair haunted mansion ride. They're a little bit inventive with some of the visuals, and it's fairly well executed, I guess. You know, sometimes. You had Allison Road, which went the way that it went. And then the other one, the big one, the one that gets kind of held up as the PT successor, is Visage, which I was way too mean about when I originally recorded this. I think as its own game, it's actually totally fine. Most of my issues came from sort of looking at it through the lens of, this is the fully realized vision of PT, which it super is not. Yeah, I don't know. I was way too mean. Anyways, back to you. The thing about Visage, and maybe I'm too hard on it, but it's just like, PT was never about the aesthetic. It was just a house. Somebody else comes along and makes a game with shallow depth of field and a spooky, regular-looking house. That's just somebody making something that looks similar so that your brain goes, yeah, that's like PT, I like that game, I like this game. But to me, Visage totally misses the point of what made PT special. It was about the simplicity, not the spooky ghost lady. But again, maybe I'm too hard on it, I don't know. It's not like it's hurting anybody, I just think it's such a sad misinterpretation of what made PT special. Having a novel take, a new look, bringing people together to talk about your thing, that's what does it. Which is why I think there's actually two games that do kind of carry on the PT legacy. One's probably one you're expecting, the other one I'm gonna guess you're probably not. Number one is Devotion by Red Candle Games, who, as far as I'm concerned, are 2 for 2 at this point. I don't really want to talk too much about the content of Devotion. I think it speaks for itself. I think everybody should play it, which is harder now. It's kind of fitting in a weird way that the one game that fully embodies the spirit of PT was also removed from distribution everywhere. Stuff like Visage and Layers of Fear, their expansion on the PT concept was, what if instead of a hallway, it was an entire house? Sure, why not? The thing that was cool about Devotion, though, was that instead of just literally expanding the scale of the location, it expanded the implications. It told a narrative that encompassed somebody's entire life by showing you the same location at different points in time. And when it did want to take you outside the apartment, Instead of just rendering a new level, it showed you the apartment, but with different props there, and your brain had to fill in where you were at that point in time. It's like watching a play. It was such a cool, novel way to handle PT's one hallway gimmick. If you can experience it in some way, absolutely do, because it's one of the coolest things I've seen in a really long time. Now, there's one other game that to me really actually embodies the spirit of what made PT so special, and it's called Go Home. Now hold on. Let me explain myself. Like I said before, PT is not about an aesthetic. It's not about any particular mechanics that the game uses. It's about an attitude. It's about simplicity. It's about purity in its intent to freak you out and draw people together over a thing that's really weird and confusing and obtuse. And Go Home is all of those things and more. It's corny, it's janky as shit. That is important to note. But the spirit of uniqueness is so omnipresent through this entire game. Yes, this woman does run at you like she just dropped a log in her pants. And yes, the song that plays when she does it is about 400 times louder than the rest of the game. But also, they have a specific remix of that song for when the dog chases you, and it's made entirely of barks. So, good video game. Go Home is so emblematic of what I love about horror games. Any notion of objective quality, whatever that's supposed to mean, is thrown right out the window. It's not about the mechanics or how tight the graphics are on level 3, because it's about bringing you to a place emotionally. And that's what Go Home does. It brings me to a place. I don't know where the fuck that place is, but... So I guess overall the point of all this is just that, yes, horror is a genre about exploring negative human emotion, but it can also bring people together. And that's why PT was so fucking magical to me. It came out of nowhere and got a lot of people excited to be scared. So if you want to find the next PT, look for something completely different. Trying to make PT exactly like you remember it is kind of pointless to me. Because PT was this moment in time. You can't just repeat it over and over. Which is, ironic, now that I'm saying it out loud.